talking about taking the mirror and turning it around and really fucking up some people's head about some shit that's right in front of their faces that they don't want to talk about. That's what we're getting ready to talk about. And I'm like, come on through, Cookie. I want to put my soapbox. That's basically it. Let's talk about drag and all its forms. What, Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on the video. This is actually going to be this is a movie review, but this is going to be it's different. This movie is actually called The Strange Things About the Johnsons, and it is actually here on YouTube. It's a 30-minute, basically a 30-minute movie. Independent film, done very, very well. The writing on it is exquisite. Trust me when I tell you. Now, I'm going to put the link to the actual movie down in the bottom, in the bottom section. If you have not seen the movie, I don't want to spoil the movie for you. Go ahead and click off and watch the movie and then come on back. And then I'll go ahead and say what it is that I actually have to say about the movie, because I have a whole lot to say about the movie. I was actually sent to the movie. My brother just randomly sent me a text earlier today. And the movie's old. This movie is like 5 years old. And for some reason, through Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, shit is blown up all over again. And it does happen. You know that happens. I wish one of my damn books would just blow up all of a sudden all over again. That would be fabulous. But whatever. That kind of thing happens. So I had never heard of it. My brother contacted me, said, "Did you ever see this? This shit's weird." It really isn't weird. It really is an eye-opener for some people. Like I said, go watch the movie if you haven't watched the movie, and bring your ass back here and see what I have to say. If you've already seen the movie, keep watching. Okay, so who all had the balls to stay and the balls to continue on while we talk about what it is that you just saw and what it is that I saw? And then we can compare notes. This is what we do over here on this channel. We'll talk about it in the comments. But I'm going to say that right away, this was some of the best writing that I've seen in a long, long time. I think the writing was done in a genius fashion. I really do. The way that everything was switched around and the mirror was turned to where something very uncomfortable, they tricked you into watching it. Because I know a lot of people wanted to turn it off, but couldn't turn it off. It was genius, sheer genius. Anyway, so let's just go through it, because this movie literally touched on all kinds of things that in the Black life we don't like talking about. We like to act like it doesn't go on, but the shit goes on. Incest, molestation, mental illness, all those things were covered. Violence, both physical and mental, all of that was covered. Let's talk about it. Okay, so when we first come in, we see Isaiah. Isaiah is laying there, child, tearing up his little stuff, honey, beating his little stuff, honey. And his dad walks in. And the dad goes back out. Of course, it creates this awkward moment. The dad literally goes and sits on the end of the bed and basically explains to his son that this is natural. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. They basically talk about taboos. First of all, since when was masturbating a taboo? It's not a taboo, but it's something that people get embarrassed about. But I've never thought of that as a taboo. So that was the first coinky dink, is what I'll call it. And I said, well, why would he pick taboo? And then he told him, well, now that we've talked about it and it's out, then it's not taboo anymore. So for me, that said, secret. We have a secret, you and I. And in our world, that's okay. But the rest of the world, that's taboo. So that I kind of start looking like, I don't know about that. Okay, so the thing is, as soon as the father got done, he told him, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave you to it. You know, given that father knows best and don't read that kind of thing. Like they're the perfect family. He goes on out. And at that time, that's when you see the first inkling of some type of mental illness, whether or not you paid attention. There is some mental illness in that family, somewhere in that blood. When he opened the picture that he was using to masturbate, it was a picture of his dad. So right away, you are showing some type of incestuous feelings toward your parent. That falls under mental. That there's something mental there. There's some bad blood there. And if you know this early on, me personally, I would definitely have had my child talking to somebody about that, because that's the issue. But as black people, we ain't really quick to be trying to take our kids to talk to nobody. But I promise you, if you got a child that has incestuous thoughts about you, take that motherfucker somewhere and have somebody talk to it, okay? Because they got issues, and other issues will come out about that shit later on. Moving on. So he's like 12 years old at the time. Then you see them taking a family photo. They're in the family photo, and he's just staring up at his dad. He's staring up at his dad. He's completely infatuated with his dad. And the way he's looking at his dad, the mother kind of notices a little bit there, because if you watch, she keeps adjusting his head. To make him look at the photographer, because you're just sitting there staring at your dad. Of course she knows there's something weird about that, but of course you're not trying to think that that's what it is, So she's just, redirected her child. So for me, at that point, I already said something that with that taboo thing has actually happened. So I immediately started thinking, okay, well, is there some type of sexual thing going on between this little boy and the dad? Is that where the taboo word fell in? Is that what this because that connection, something ain't right about that connection. That wasn't no father-son connection. That ain't the connection I had with my two boys. Not at all. Something wasn't right with that. Then we jump ahead. It's 14 years later, and it's now Isaiah's wedding. And it all came clear. I was exactly right. There was something in that relationship that was wrong, and it was off, and it was secret. Okay? And at this time, it had taken on a different tone. When you look at the body language, when they're standing there taking the picture, you have the bride and her mother and father are over here. You have Isaiah next to the bride. You have Isaiah's dad next to Isaiah, and Isaiah's mother on the far end of the dad. The dad looks completely unhappy. He looks completely unhappy, even a little bit jealous, is what I actually pulled from it. He seemed to be a little bit jealous. Because at this point, Isaiah got a sexual partner. Like, he has a sexual partner. So where Isaiah has some type of feelings that were incorrect about his dad, and I believe they were sexual. Well, we know they were, because he was idolizing them and carrying on. I was saying, well, did the dad get jealous at this point? So I'm like, okay. So at the reception of the wedding, The mother's running around looking for Isaiah and his dad, can't find him. And it's at that time, now remember, Isaiah is 26 years old at this time. At this time, she goes back and there's a piece of the yard that's actually closed off. They're back there, and she's looking through the little hole in the gate and sees Isaiah literally back there polishing his father's knob, honey. So now she definitely knows something inappropriate is going on between her son and her husband, and has been going on between her son and her husband. Now, I'm looking at the dad's face again, because this time, now it's not looking like, he doesn't look mad anymore. He looks confused and trapped. Okay? I'm going to go backwards a little bit. When they were standing in the line taking the pictures before she went to looking for him, that was another thing. When they were standing there, he said, "Thanks for everything, Pop," and he rolled his hand down and squoze his dad on the butt. Okay, so now I'm just going to break this out here. I felt like at that point things had shifted. I think that it was inappropriate behavior between the father and the son. And the father and the son were okay. Both of them were okay with what had been going on. Their little taboo thing, that little thing they were keeping between themselves. And I think once girlfriends and things like that came into play, that's when there was a shift. And the power has shifted. At this point, the dad was no longer really okay with what was going on. Okay? And I think he got a little jealous, and then reality was setting in this wrong any old way. And wanted to like leave it alone. But at that point, Isaiah had begun manipulation. So now we're starting to see, and it's a role reversal. We're starting to see a molestation that is actually going on. But at this point, it's between literally two grown people. The father, to me, seemed to be being made to do things that he didn't want to do. But if I don't do them, then you're going to go back and, you're holding what has been done before that was consensual between you two over his head. And isn't that exactly what predators do to small children? But with the writer, all he did was reverse the roles. Instead of the father molesting a little boy and holding things over him and threatening him, we're seeing it happen from the son to the father, which seems completely ridiculous, but it was done to turn the mirror around on you all, the viewer, and you still kept watching because you couldn't stop. Though you didn't like it and it made you uncomfortable, you couldn't stop. Had it been someone doing it to a child, you would turn it off. We would have all turned it off. And it would have never been made. It would have never gotten the chance to make it to screen. So that's why I say the writer was fucking brilliant. Okay? So now we're being made to look at things that we don't usually look at, especially as black people. Okay, so then we start to see, life is going on, and we're still seeing Isaiah doesn't live with the mother and father anymore. He has this wife, but whenever he comes over, there's still flirting going on between him and the dad. And it's getting to the point where the dad is totally uncomfortable when Isaiah's even around. Classic molestation. Classic. It's just classic. It's classic. The growth of how molestation works and how people just victimize people who they have that hold on. And the father at this point is starting to reach out. You see him write a book. He's a writer. So he's spilling everything into the writing. He has written a memoir called Cocoon Man. And you see him take the book that he wrote and slip it to the wife, slips it in the bed to the wife, but the son finds it instead, reads the book, comes in and tells the dad. He down talks it all together. He literally just browbeats the father, beats him down mentally, tell him it ain't good, and as a writer, I thought it would be better. Beat him down mentally. And the father's like, oh, I'm sorry about what I wrote. Sorry about what? Sorry about what I wrote. And then throws the threat in there. Classic. Classic victimizing molestation shit and rape. Threw that shit in there and told him, I don't ever want to see another copy. I'm going to burn this, and I don't ever want to see another copy of this. And if I do, next time it'll be worse. Isn't that what molesters and predators do to children? Tell them they're going to kill their family members and tell them, I'm going to take you and make you disappear, or I'm going to I'll turn it around and make everybody hate you. Classic. But we just flipped it around. Classic. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so that goes on. Then we move on to, and the father's completely traumatized. Like every time you see him anywhere around you, he's just traumatized. New Year's Eve. They have a New Year's Eve party. This one it gets really bad. Get the New Year's Eve party, gives the wife some cock and bull story, tell her to go ahead on home. He gonna stay there and help the parents clean up. The father's upstairs in the tub, and he had locked the door and he had headsets on. Didn't even hear the son trying to jiggle the door. The son then got into a violent state at this point, and he's banging the door, saying, I don't like locked doors. Because now the father's literally trying to, he won't even leave himself open to let the predator up on him. People do it all the time. When the predator's around, they try to hide themselves or try to keep themselves around people. And when he locked the door, well, he busted into the bathroom. The father literally starts hollering, screaming at this point. And that's when we actually see the dynamic of the parent that knows, well, it's generally a parent, but the person that knows that something is going on in their home, but chooses not to look at it, which it generally is the black mother in the home, okay, or the grandmother in the home. The wife has her ass up there sitting on the bed. She hears the husband hollering. She heard the door bust in. She know nobody else is in the house except for her and Isaiah. She knew her husband was in that tub or in that bathroom, and you hear the husband hollering. She turned the TV up louder so she can't hear it. Classic. How many times have you heard stories where the woman knew that her daughters was being molested, or knew their sons were being molested or taken advantage of by boyfriends or uncles or who the fuck ever, and most of the time it's a boyfriend or their husband. They know it and they just shut it out like the shit ain't going on. Isn't that exactly what we watch? But the role was reversed. Brilliant. You still are watching. Still watching. You ain't turned it off yet. You still watching. At that point, he literally, the whole dynamic of this is changing. It's just worsening as time is going on, because I believe it was probably some touchy-feely shit that was going on in the beginning. At this point, we've gone to violence. You're actually yanking, pulling, and hitting on the father, and you literally took and fucked him. And they led you to believe that was the first time that he actually did penetrate him anally. So the abuse is escalating as we go along here. Okay, so then everything basically comes to a head. The father has still writing his novel and trying to get it out. I think he had just literally had enough that he's going to tell the story, and he's on his way down the steps. Isaiah stops him, and they're having this whole conversation. The mother's still in the house. Isaiah then flips the blame and tells him, oh, so you're going to say it's me? It's all me? I'm the one that did that? I'm a monster? I'm a monster? This, that, thing, and the other? Oh, nothing about the role you played in it. See that? That Jedi mind trick is what he was working on him. They do it to predators, do it to kids all the time. And the dad ends up running out the door and ran right, and I believe he did it purposely, ran in front of a moving van that was speeding down the street. Bam, hits him and kills him. How many dead children are there that wanted to end it because they were in that position? Writer, brilliant. Flipped it. You still watching. Still watching. There he is, dead in the middle of the street. Isaiah runs out, victim dead. So he's having this whole moment about his dad being dead. The mother runs out. He hollers at the mother, don't fucking touch him. Don't call a fucking ambulance. Really? She's stupid. So she runs her ass on back in there and she does all that. We go through the whole funeral and all that. Her and the son ain't talking. She's in trauma. She's totally traumatized at this point. She's too far out, all the way out. And this is when the role reversal thing was like, oh, this was brilliant. If you didn't catch it up until now, then you really could catch it because it was just blatant at this point. Because at that point, she became like the mother instead of the wife. She kind of, her role kind of flip-flopped with it. But she ended up then approaching Isaiah and asking him, when did this start? And the first thing she asked, she said, why was it when your dad picked you up from the prom, he was crying? And he's like, that's been 10 years ago. I don't even know what you're talking about. And she said, no. 10 years ago, when your dad took you to the prom, and he came and picked you up from the prom, why was he crying? And for me, and I'm going to tell you what I got, and y'all tell me what it was for y'all down in the comments. I'm thinking for him, that was that turning point where the dad didn't want to be bothered anymore. The dad had gotten completely jealous because, on prom day generally is the first day that parents accept that their kid actually went and had sex at the prom. And she said that the dad just cried and cried. He never would say nothing to her, and he locked himself in the bathroom. Doesn't that sound like a scorned lover? Isn't that what that sounds like? And she was saying, is that when all of this started? And she's talking about the indecent, inappropriate behavior. And he's picking up, he'd have picked up because he's smart on what she's talking about. And he's still playing the game with her. I don't know what you're talking about. You're just crazy. You're not yourself. Listen to you. This, that, and the other. And she says, oh, no, it must have started earlier. So they're going back and forth. He done got irritated because now, remember, he is this predator. Now he is going back and forth with his mother. And remember, it's a role reversal because normally it would actually be the child snapping out at the mother as opposed to the mother snapping out at the child about inappropriate shit, and now the father is dead. Y'all with me? I hope y'all are still with me. Okay. All right. And you're still watching. So then it goes, the mother tells him, you did this. You're a monster. You killed your own father. You were the cause of this. And that's when he told her, you shut up. And he smacked his mother. Well, she smacked him first. She told him, you don't tell me to shut up. She smacked him. And he smacked her back. And he said to her, I took better care of him than you ever did. And there you see it. This little bastard, literally, and he has said things to the father about the mother, going on, called her old cold bitch, and said they had a loveless bed. He literally was so into his incestuous, inappropriate behavior with his father that he was looking at his mother like she was competition. Child, if that ain't mental illness, I'll kiss your ass. That whole family unit, baby, needed some serious counseling. They had some whole bunch of shit going on up in there. And yes, it does go on in the black family. Black families don't want to talk about it though a lot of times. Still watching. Anyway, so the mother and the son get to going back and forth. They get to really fighting, and he literally is really trying to kill the mother. And it turns out she ends up murdering him. And that's where it actually ends. But do you see how that whole thing flipped? Do you see the brilliance of the writer and how he tricked you into watching something that you normally wouldn't watch? So then what I did, I started looking at all of the reviews. Not all of them because there's a lot, but I started looking at some of the reviews that were out. And then I got bothered all over because I wasn't even going to do a review. I was like, wow, that was, I was amazed at the writing. I thought it was wonderful. The writing, the film was shot really well, but I was really done with it. I was like, okay, well, whatever. When I started looking at the comments under the movie and looking at the reviews, what in the fuck is wrong with people? We've talked about exactly what it is. Yes, there are all the things that black people tend to think are awful and don't want to admit go on in our community. But when I started looking at the reviews, it all started being thrown on homosexuality. Did I miss something? Did I miss something? People were trying to find ways to place blame. Well, it was the father. I don't know why the father didn't just kill him. Because if I had a gay son that did that, that. I sat and I looked at these reviews, and it just showed really a lot of hatred for gay people. And I just didn't get it. I didn't get where it became a gay story. Yes, it was a father and a son, but that wasn't even what the focal point. It was molestation. It was molestation. So even through being tricked to watch this movie, some of our people in our community found a way to still keep from confronting the problem that molestation and incest had in the black community and threw it over there on gay. Really? Really? And if that's where you at, I think you should go back and watch the movie again. Go back and watch it again. Because, yes, there are homosexual undertones to it as well. That was a problem. But it really wasn't, the homosexual undertone wasn't where the real big problem was. Because there was mental illness. It wasn't even focused about the boy being gay. The issue was it was his goddamn daddy. That was the issue. It would have been the same issue if he was fucking his mother. It was about the incestuousness of it. It was about the molestation of it. It was not even focused on the fact that it was male on male. But that's the easy one. Because we already know in the black community, people are conditioned to hate us. Yeah, I'm gay, so, us. I'm part of that community. So, people are already conditioned to hate us. They're used to it. They're cool with it. But not to actually look at the things that they should have been looking at, which is this molestation, this incest, and this mental illness issues that we have in our community. Child, stop it, y'all. Stop it. Get off the shit and cut it out and look at things for what they are. We need to pay more attention to these people, because this is not about your gay cousin that pops and twirls and gives the girls a roll. This is not what that's about. This is about your uncles and your aunts and your cousins that come to visit, that put their fingers in your daughter's pussy and that play with your little boy's balls. This is what that's about. Okay? Pay attention. Pay attention. Listen to your children. Make sure that your children are comfortable enough to tell you when somebody's doing something to them. That's what's important. Stop worrying about whether or not they're going to be gay or not. You ain't got no control over that. But what you do have control over is making sure that your children are comfortable, so that if in the case that you can't stop a predator at getting to your child, at least your child can tell you that shit happened and you can get to that motherfucker so they can't get to your kid again. That's what's important. So that was my whole point for actually doing this. And yes, when I went and it ran into a gay issue, it ran me hot. It did. It ran me hot, because that's not even what it was all about. Stop always trying to throw everything that you find perverse on the gays, honey. This little situation here wasn't about the gays. It wasn't about us. This was about the cousins and stuff that be filling on your kids and stuff. That's what that was about. This was awareness for you to pay attention, honey. It's the people who are right around you, that are right up underneath your nose, that will get in there and do all those unmentionable things to your children. People, pay attention to your children. Pay attention to your children. And don't be afraid to admit that some counseling needs to take place, and that mental illness actually does run rampant through the Black community as well. And on that, I've talked long enough. It's almost 30 minutes. I've had enough of this one. I'm sure the comments are going to be real interesting. Can't wait to see what you guys have to say. Later, guys.